A deafening roar, rolling over hill and dale. The weak flee in fear, but the strong prevail. On the snowy mountainside, white is drenched with red. When the ancient tyrant hunts, all are filled with dread.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, yo, what is the owl for? Like, every quest, we throw the owl, but what is it for? Like, I remember seeing the owl in, like, the base area, like, the village, and you can, like, change the clothes on it or whatever, but, like, what does the owl do? Whatever. Anyway, so today we are going to be taking a look at a monster that looks, kinda acts, maybe even sounds. If anything, I'd like to say it's imitating a Tigrex, because this monster is not a Tigrex. Tigrex is a terrifying beast, an absolute legend in Monster Hunter community speaking circles or whatever. He's the flagship monster for Freedom 2? Pretty sure Dark Eagle's Freedom Unite. Nevertheless, he is a terror. He's a menace. He rushes relentlessly. His main thing is to just lay down as much damage as possible. He has a roar that damages you with audacious range. But all of that does not describe the monster that's in this game. None of that describes this monster. This is the most nerfed version of Tigrex I've ever played in my entire life. And honestly, making this video is depressing. This is going to be a very depressing video. This is going to be a video where all the personality is in the very first half of this video. There's not going to be any me saying, yo, he has some dope stuff. He doesn't have any dope anything. They took everything away from my man. He had a lot of cool things, but they decided maybe it's too tough, and we're not going to give it to him. So this is going to be an incredibly cut and dry video because they didn't put any effort into it, so why should I? Due to the kerfuffle I caused on Twitter the other day by saying Tigrex was ass, what I'm going to do now is actually put effort into this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of clips. In these clips, I'm going to show you what Tigrex was versus what he is. Now, a lot of these clips, you'll look at him like, well, this all pertains to people who block in like lancers and such. That's that's one point. That is a point that I need to actually clarify so that way it's proven across the board. Most attacks will be dodged, evaded, and whatnot, but if you're lancing, you're blocking, which is a grand way of noting the difference in power that a monster has had between generations. So whenever you block a Tigrex roar, a Tigrex slow spin, or actually let's leave it at those two, a Tigrex roar and a Tigrex slow spin, these are two incredibly notable attacks that he has. There is an insane amount of pushback. I mean, an insane. You could be fully invested in guard and still get pushback. No longer the case, and let me show you. First up the bat is for you. It's the oldest of the more modern Monster Hunter games, and this is Tigrex in its form here. Image on the right is no guard, image on the left is guard +2. The pushback is exactly the same. 90 frames of pushback. Fully invested and not invested at all. 90 frames of pushback equally. But what about GU, you say? I mean, I did that research too. It's the exact same. 90 frames. And I mentioned the tailspin. Take my word for it, it's 90 frames as well across 4U, GU, and so on, everything. It's all the exact same, either with investment in guard or no investment in guard as well. Well, Dak, what about Iceborne? Well, Iceborne and Rise, since they're both 5th gen, they're interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you the reason why we all felt that Tigrex was a real monster back in Iceborne. He had a couple of different attacks. Why did he have a couple of different attacks? Why did he move a little faster? He's G rank. He's a G rank only monster. So everything I'm about to say applies to both Rise and Iceborne. In order to actually, I'm not gonna show footage of it. You guys have seen all the frame data take my word for it, please. I'll show a little bit actually. In order for you to have the 90 frame pushback, you need to have absolutely no investment into guard. With literally 1 point into guard, you invalidate everything that Tigrex has. Something to note, you've all seen the tailspin. The tailspin gives you too much pushback, same with the roar, it gives you too much pushback for you to actually counter. You cannot counter the tailspin in the previous gens. In this game you can. With a singular point into guard, you can counter the tailspin. After I saw that you could do that, I didn't need to run any more frame data. It just invalidates everything I had. Now I know this is only just 2 attacks, and I bet you guys are thinking, Dak, what the heck, dude? No one cares. I just run out of the way and I don't get hit with that. You know what I mean? I get that. Trust me, I do. I had to mention this because it's a huge point for those of us who use either lance, gun lance, or just tend to block these attacks instead of running away. Now, speaking of the running away point, do you guys remember when Monster Hunter hitboxes were all broken and stuff? Well, they fixed those. I kind of feel like, in my personal opinion, the Monster Hunter hitboxes, hit zones, if you will, are the best in that of, I hate to say it, well, 4th gen, if you will. They pretty much got it down nice and pat. What I want to say World and Iceborne did was they slimmed them down. And it would look very fair, like, you know what, like, yeah, I should have been hit by that. That's a monster's body part. I should have been hit. They've made it even slimmer. And in Rise, even more slimmer than it was in Iceborne. There's a lot of points now where I'm fighting not just Tigrex, but other monsters where I'm like, dude, I totally should have got freaking blown halfway across the galaxy with this attack. But it didn't happen, and it happens a lot with the Tigrex, even more so. Remember that tailspin? I'm gonna keep talking about the tailspin. The range on the tailspin has been incredibly nerfed. I will sit there and like, okay, I'm totally gonna block this. It's totally within range. Heck, his head sticks out further, and I still don't get hit with the tail. Not just that, but lunging attacks that will totally knock me clean across the map don't, for whatever reason. Like I guess they brought up the hitbox. Instead of having it on its body whenever he leaps through the air, it actually goes upwards. So that maybe to catch people with the wire bug, but also negating everyone underneath him. It happens not all the time, and it's just another weird idiocy that like throws me off. When I see this, I'm like, dude, I cleanly got hit, but I don't get hit. By not getting hit, you're not in like a state of like, oh my god, I gotta heal. So that way you're not thinking, man, I'm getting beat up. If you don't get hit, psh, yo, swinging longsword go burr, you know what I mean? And you just kill the monster, use big number. So all this wrapped up makes me believe that Tigrex is the worst he's ever been. So where does this leave us? Iceborne had G rank. G rank monsters get bonuses to speed and attack and so on. So that's why Tigrex and Iceborne was actually a lot more difficult than it was in Rise. Rise, on the other hand, is what would have happened if they gave us Tigrex in base world, I'm guessing. A monster who was a huge shadow of his former self in terms of his capabilities, but at the end of the day, it's still not a terrible monster. It's just knowing the pedigree and where it came from really leaves a bad taste in my mouth when it comes to fighting a Tigrex. Anyway, back on topic. Tigrex is weak to thunder and also weak to dragon. He's more weak to thunder than he is of dragon. Him and Rathalos share the same weaknesses, just that the numbers are swapped a little bit, so it's more thunder than that dragon. So bring some Zinogre. You just fought a Zinogre a couple of fights back. Bring that. Use big number. Use quick weapons like sword and shield, dual blades, longsword. Those things. Those were the best things you could use to actually fight them. The only time you were at a disadvantage if you were using like a slow weapon like great sword, lance, gun lance. But guess what? Psh, use them joints too, because you ain't got nothing to be worried about no more. Bring 2 points of guard and you are smoothing, my guy. But we're not going to be that dead horse anymore. So his gear's pretty good. The armor, it's kind of been the same throughout most of the years. It's a couple of different skills here and there, but for the most part, it's the same. So high rank and low rank, the only difference is that in high rank you get Mind's Eye, but high rank you get 5 into earplugs, high grade earplugs if you will, meaning monster roars do nothing to you except like a Tigrex roar, which can still hurt you in this game if you're like in his mouth when he roars. That's the range. I need to stop harping badly on this guy. Anyway, speed eating. You eat things really quickly. Bludgeoner. Bludgeoner is interesting. Let's take a look at Bludgeoner actually. What Bludgeoner does is you get a 10% attack increase if your weapon sharpness is green or lower. Now, I think it got slightly nerfed from back in the day. I think it was either like 20 or 15%, but roughly now it's about attack medium when it used to be like attack large, essentially, or something like that. Maybe I get my numbers mixed up, but that's how it works. If your weapon has green sharpness, then the Bludgeoner activates. And it works quite well with Tigrex weapons because his weapons, they don't have the most blue sharpness, but they do have a lot of green, allowing you to just swing maddenly and do what you do. And when you're green, you do bounce off of certain monster parts. However, with Mind's Eye, you don't. You just don't bounce at all. Heck, if you hit a hard part that you usually bounce off of, you get a 15% attack increase, which is actually pretty nice. Speeding, we talked about. Earplugs, you know, nullifies like all monster roars. You're good. Next is the low rank. You get everything except you lose some points in the earplugs, you lose a point in speed eating, you keep all your bludgeoner, and you lose the Mind's Eye. Now for the weapons. The weapons, they have a history of being really good. Let's take a look at the greatsword. They are essentially high attack weapons with some affinity issues in some instances. So for the most part, the weapons will have each roughly 210, 230 or so attack range. White sharpness, but pretty decent on the low side of the affinity. Usually -15, -20, your most common numbers you'll see. Take note of the green sharpness though, that plays into the bludgeoner concept. But with a weapon like greatsword, you kind of don't really need it too often because you're not swinging as often. But with a weapon like longsword, dual blade, switch axe, anything that uses a lot of sharpness with its attacks, also gun lance, you might want rather to use the bludgeoner to take use of that green sharpness. So what I like to say about Tigrex weapons and Tigrex gear in general, it's still good. It may not be meta. If anything, walk away with the weapons, because the armor you can kind of leave without, but the weapons have always and forever will be good. And since it's a flagship, everyone gets one. Final thoughts on Tigrex. Okay, so he's a monster who's still difficult. Okay, don't get me wrong, he's still nice. You can still catch the bus ass, alright? It's just, you're not always going to catch the bus ass. There were times where I'd say Tigrex was my least favorite monster, one of my least favorite monsters in the game, because of how much damage and how relentless he was. I cannot say the same thing about the last two Tigrex whatever that we've had, because they just don't hit the same. Literally and like figuratively, they just don't hit the same. But all in all, I mean, he's still a solid monster. He's a flagship, so he does have a little bit of difficulty compared to other monsters. Again, his weaknesses are that of thunder and dragon. Hit him in the head, chop off his tail, those kind of things. Not much else to say. Like at this point, like I just don't want to say anything bad about the monster, but I'm kind of having a hard time trying to find good things to say. I mean, he's not bad. He's just, I'm more disappointed than anything else. But needless to say, guys, I know I didn't really talk about how to actually fight this guy as much as I normally used to. This was more of a tangential video where I was like, yo, this is how we do the thing, this is how we do that, and then you do that, you do this. We didn't do any of that. We just talked about how bad he is now. But still note that he's definitely a monster you should really watch out for. A lot of his attacks and everything go in a straight line, so when you fight him, your greatest adversary is being in a vertical plane. You want to go horizontally, you want to go side to side, go from to the left, go all the way to the right, circle around him, that kind of thing. He can move pretty quickly, but he has no horizontal speed. Like, he moves fast in one direction in a straight line. He jumps in a straight line. He does all these things in a straight line. So my best advice to you fighting him is use a weapon that's really quick, that doesn't have any mobility ailments, if you will, and circle around them and attack when free. With that being said, everyone, that's Tigrex. Of course, Twitter and Discord and so on, all that stuff in the description. I don't really have anything else to say. Next video, I don't know what it's gonna be or when it's gonna be. Probably in a couple of days, but I don't know. Whatever. I'm rambling. Everyone, it's been your boy. Take care, everyone. Watch the rest of this clip. Take care. Peace out. Eat some chicken.